Hi everyone, this is Dr. Finnegan. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about academic integrity. So all colleges have policies related to academic integrity. You can find them in the course outline or in the student handbook, or sometimes you can find them on the college website. So let's think about what we mean by academic integrity, and also the opposite of that, which is academic dishonesty, and what are the consequences of not being honest in your work. So ideally, what we would like everybody to be is honest so that they have academic integrity. So another phrase for academic integrity is academic honesty. A simple definition of academic integrity is that you do your own work. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. So, for example, you can use other people's ideas, but you must give them credit for it. So if I was writing about self-efficacy, that happens to be an idea created, or a theory actually created by a man called Bandura. So I can use that idea, I can write about it, but I would have to state in my paper, in Bandura's theory of self-efficacy, and then write a little bit about the theory and then how it related to my work. I happen to know that the theory was first published in 1977, but you would probably have the sources right in front of you, so you could find out the sources and cite them and put them in your reference list. So that's what one example of academic integrity is, giving credit to other people for the work that they do. The other example of academic integrity is presenting your results or your findings fairly. So maybe you did a survey and the findings might be unexpected, but you still have to present the findings that you got from your survey. So I have a class where people do a survey, and some people get like 7 responses, and other people get over 100. So it doesn't matter how many you get, what matters is that you are honest. The same applies to lab results or work samples or any other kind of results or findings that you are attaching to your papers and your reports. The opposite of academic integrity is academic dishonesty. So in academic dishonesty means that you didn't give credit to other people for their ideas, you didn't present your findings correctly, and maybe you cheated in some way. Maybe you just copied somebody else's paper because it was easy. The most famous example that's hit the headlines recently is a man called Andrew Wakefield. Back in 1998, he did a study which showed that vaccines may cause autism. It turns out years later that the data that was used in that study was falsified. What does that mean? It means he cheated. He just made the numbers up, right? Or he did some jiggery pokery to make it come up with the results that he wanted. And so essentially he deceived people, right? So by publishing this paper, he deceived a lot of people and caused a lot of pain and agony. Although he didn't retract his results, it is common knowledge now that he falsified the results, he cheated, he deceived people, and the people that published his paper took it back. And that's very, very unusual. They removed it from their publication. So that's a famous example of academic dishonesty. So it can have consequences not just for the person that was dishonest, but in that case, it had consequences for society as a whole, because people didn't know what to believe, right? Do vaccines cause autism or they don't? We don't know, because the information we've got is so unreliable that we don't know. In fact, there is actually other studies that show that there is no connection. So for those of you that are pro-vax like me, we're going to go with the studies that show there's no connection. Right, so back to academic dishonesty. So what might this mean for you in a college, right? So there's some different examples. The first thing you might be guilty of is plagiarism. So this is when you take somebody else's ideas and present them as your own. In other words, you don't give credit where credit is due. You don't mention their name, you don't put in a citation or a reference. So you just took their ideas and wrote them down as if they were your own. This can be intentional, right? Maybe you deliberately read an article and paraphrased that person or copied that person, and you intentionally chose to copy their work without giving them credit. Or it could be unintentional because maybe you heard about an idea in class, or you read about something and you remembered it, and then you wrote about it without remembering who first came up with that idea. So whether it's intentional or unintentional, it is still plagiarism, and so you can still be caught for copying somebody else's ideas. The second way that you might be guilty of academic dishonesty is you might intentionally try to deceive people. This is usually done in terms of results or findings. So for example, people might feel, well, I want good results from my lab experiment. I don't want to show that there was no reaction or no effect. So I'm just going to make up what I thought the results should be. But that's deceptive, okay? Because a good scientist will say, look, nothing happened, right? I got to figure out why nothing happened, okay? So there's no point in being deceptive. What I find in teacher education, a lot of times people are deceptive because they actually want to please their professor. So maybe the professor says, go out, observe in the classroom, and write about an example of self-taught that you observed. And the student, you sit there for 3 days, and none of the students are involved in self-taught. So what do? They just make something up, okay? But that's deceptive. You should be honest and say that you didn't see any of the children engaging in self-talk. How would I handle that situation? I would be honest, say none of the children were engaged in self-talk. They were not talking through the tasks. They were not reciting things to themselves. And then I would look for reasons why. Maybe it's because the teacher required all the students to work in absolute silence. So talking to yourself would get you into trouble. Or maybe the task that the students were doing was so routine, maybe it was just review and practice, that at this point in time, there was no need for the students to be talking through the process that they were going through. So you don't have to be a deceptive, but maybe you do have to explain or investigate a little bit further why you got the results or the observations that you did. And then, of course, another example of academic dishonesty is cheating, right? This could be literally cheating from somebody else's exam, or if you're taking an online exam, texting each other the answers, that would be cheating. I've had cases where both people have handed in the same paper. We have to investigate, did they write it together, or did one person copy the other person's paper? I've had examples of people that have paid other people to write the paper for them. And so both people then are guilty of cheating, both the person that paid for the paper and also the person that wrote the paper. So those are all examples of cheating. Can you be guilty of more than one thing? Yes, right? Because if you are copying somebody else's work, right, you could be guilty of plagiarism, right? You took their ideas and you didn't give them credit. And you could also be guilty of cheating, especially if you copied it word for word. If you allow somebody to copy falsified lab results, you are both guilty of cheating because you copied, and you're also guilty of deception because you falsified the results, right? So no matter what your motive was, you are guilty of academic dishonesty. So what are the consequences? Well, strictly speaking, you can actually be expelled from the college or the university. And this applies to faculty and students alike. When I was at Teachers College, which is Columbia University, one of the faculty members copied her students' work and tried to publish it as her own, and she got fired. So you could be expelled for copying, for plagiarism, or for deception. More likely though, because you are young, you're going to be given a second chance. The professor will probably report that they found that you were dishonest. They will send that report to somebody who's in charge of monitoring academic dishonesty. Consequences can vary a lot. Maybe you get a 0 for that particular assignment. Maybe you get an F for the class, and then you have to retake the class. Usually for repeat offenders, for those people that continually cheat in multiple classes, then the consequences are going to be more dire. You're probably going to be put on academic probation and then eventually asked to leave the college. So the consequences can be pretty significant. We do take this very seriously. So what is the best advice? The best advice is to do your own work. And then if you have questions, like if you don't get the results that you wanted, or if you can't find information to support your ideas, go to your professor, right? Check out the video on office hours, email your professor, go to your professor's office hours and ask for their